most. I am curled up in a blanket this morning because it's chilly where I live. The story that we're going to be talking about today is called Show and Tell. That's the day that Margaret and I really began to reveal to one another our authentic selves. She began to really share her life story with me and to show me how her breast cancer diagnosis had been one of the core stories that she had built her life around. It had been, of course, one of the most devastating and frightening events that had ever happened to her. But rather than becoming a victim of her circumstance, she became an advocate and a teacher. And the trail of good that she left in the world because of that has been enormous. And of course, it continues on today in the pages of Soul Messenger. One of the real gifts that Margaret gave to me during our friendship was the day she sat me down and told me that my experience with what I call the Stone Madonna was a life story that had been given to me for a reason, and that it was my responsibility to share it with a larger audience. For those of you who have not yet read about the Stone Madonna, here's a little video clip that does a good job of describing this core story of mine. So today we're going to talk about the story called the Stone Madonna. The Stone Madonna is a little rock figurine that rolled into my life in 1998 after I had been taking a walk on the beach with my children, and I was at a bit of a crossroads in my life, and I sent out a very sincere prayer to the universe asking if I was perhaps supposed to dedicate my destiny to writing books, because a few things had happened in my life prior to that that seemed to be indicating that maybe that is what my soul came here to do. So as I was walking with my children, I tossed a prayer out to the universe like I had done thousands and thousands of times before. But I was asking a very direct question. If I am meant to write books, please give me a clear and irrefutable sign. And if you do that, I will dedicate my life to writing books and teaching people the truth as I learn it and as you show it to me. So that was my very specific prayer. And within a few minutes, a wave washed a little rock up at my feet. This rock was just a few inches tall, but when it landed at my feet, it may as well have been a 200-ton boulder, because it made my entire world shake. The backstory to why that is because for many, many years before this, the length of my spiritual life, I had been very devoted to the presence of the Divine Mother, and my home was filled, still is filled, with Divine Mother figurines, and it was the primary focus of all of my prayers and my meditations in my spiritual life for years. And I had a little pewter figure, this pewter figure. It used to sit on my meditation altar. And this little figure is what I would focus on every morning when I said my prayers and did my meditations and asked for the universe to guide me on my path. The day in Carmel that I asked for a sign of my destiny, if I was supposed to write books, the little figurine that washed up at my feet was an exact replica of the pewter figurine that had held my spiritual intentions for years prior to this. So you can imagine that felt like a very, very direct response from the universe. And I think the reason I got such a direct response, I think it was twofold. threefold actually. I asked a very direct question, and I believe that we do come here with destinies. And at the soul level, sometimes it's very, very hard to remember what our destinies are. And I think that day on the beach, when I pretty innocently asked, am I supposed to write books and teach? Is that what I came here to do? If it is, give me a clear and irrefutable sign. I think I asked the $64,000 question. I think that is precisely what I came here to do. And because my question was precise, I think my destiny in this lifetime is quite precise. The answer that I got from the universe was incredibly precise. So that is reason number one that I think the Stone Madonna experience happened for me. Reason number two, oftentimes in my teachings, you will hear me say when we have high need, when we have a high need for spiritual interaction, we will typically get a high level of spiritual interaction from the universe. At that point in my life in 1998, I was on the precipice of some very, very difficult life changes that were just around the bend from that day, and I did not know that. The things that I went through over the next 3 or 4 years brought me to my knees. But my faith, after that day on the beach and the Stone Madonna landing at my feet, my faith in the invisible was so incredibly bolstered by that experience. It's one of the things that allowed me to take the hand of grace and keep walking forward when life really had given me some experiences that were making me want to crawl. So that was reason number two. I think there was a high need, and because of that, I got a very high level interactive answer. The third thing that I believe came into play that day, the conditions were right. I don't know what the conditions are, but I can tell you as an everyday mystic, as a medium, as an intuitive, there are days and moments and times in my life where the conditions are right and a doorway between worlds swings open with just the tiniest little tap from me. And there are other days where it seems like I can knock and knock and knock and the door is not able to open. So I do believe that there are conditions that make spiritual phenomenon either able to come through more easily or conditions which can make it much more difficult. That day on the beach in Carmel, conditions were amazing. And if you look at this picture that was taken as I was kneeling on that shoreline with my children, holding the Stone Madonna in my hand, you can see there are dozens of opalescent orbs of light in the background behind us. This was 1998, long before the days of digital photography. In fact, I can still remember picking that photo up at the grocery store photo kiosk where I had to bring my Kodak roll of film in order to get the pictures developed from that day. I was absolutely not expecting a photograph like that. I'm not sure I even knew what an orb was. I don't believe I had ever had any anomaly show up in a photograph prior to this. And the orb photo is just one more indicator that for whatever reason, that day on the beach, conditions were right. So the takeaway for readers when I talk about the Stone Madonna story, two things. I didn't tell this story publicly for decades after it happened to me because I didn't understand how it happened or why it happened to me. Today, I know that miracles are our birthright. And the reason that the Stone Madonna happened, the conditions were right, the need was high, and my question was relevant and direct. We all live in a land of miracles. And today, when I walk out my front door every morning, I know I live in a land of miracles, and I receive miracles. They are not always of the caliber of the stone Madonna, but every single day, my soul messengers make sure that they sprinkle my world with little divine moments of connection that really keep me going and help me know that I am on the right path. So when you read that stone Madonna story, remember that miracles are your birthright. And as long as you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and you're willing to ask the questions, the interactive universe is a very, very benevolent source of support to all of us. And when the conditions are right, those miracles, they'll roll through your front door just like they do through mine.